Eric was right. Humanity does this to us.
Not if we show them a better path.
You still believe?
Just because someone stumbles, loses their way, it doesn't mean they're lost forever.
Bottom line up front, Powers of 10 number 6 receives my highest recommendation. This comic provides an excellent conclusion to Jonathan Hickman's groundbreaking House of X Powers of 10 story arc. Who are we kidding? This story likely immediately ascends to the preeminent X-Men work of the past decade. From the first page of House of X number 1 to the final page of Powers of 10 number 6, Hickman crafts an extremely engaging story that pays homage to X-Men's past while catapulting it into an even more exciting future. Artists Pepe Larraz, RB Silva, and Marte Gracia have left an indelible mark in X-Men lore. Together, Hickman, Larraz, Silva, and Gracia change reader perception of what an X-Men story can be. And most exciting of all, this is just the beginning. Next week, Hickman's X-Men series is the first of 6 new X titles in the Dawn of X Phase 1. House of X number 6 seemed to put a bow on the story with the mutination of Krakoa finally a reality. Sovereignty is secured, a government formed, the first judgment passed, and many old rivalries and grievances buried for the betterment of Mutantkind. Powers of 10 number 6 is the final Red Band issue of the series. The first Red Band issue, House of X number 2, threw X-Men on its head with the Moira X reveal. The second Red Band issue, House of X number 5, saw Cyclops and his team of fallen mutants resurrected, revealed Professor X's plan to raise all 16 million mutants murdered at Genosha, and the arrival of Apocalypse, Mr. Sinister, Exodus, and a host of other historically villainous mutants on Krakoa, joining their brothers and sisters. Based on past issues, Powers of 10 number 6 must have an enormous reveal that alters our perception of the previous issues and the new X-Men status quo. This comic definitely delivers a handful of huge reveals, but it's honestly difficult to expect Hickman to meet, let alone eclipse, the impact of House of X number 2. Hickman certainly shakes things up in Powers of 10 number 6. We finally learn what Moira's missing sixth life entailed and the ultimate meaning of the Ascension story arc set 1,000 years in the future. Before I get into the details of this excellent comic book, I humbly ask if this is your first time viewing the channel, or if you're a regular and haven't yet, please show your support and subscribe to the channel. My subscriber count lets other comic fans know that Thinking Critical YouTube is the go-to source for comic book reviews, news, discussion, and in-depth analysis. If you're enjoying the channel content, please subscribe. Now let's get into all the details in today's comic book review. The story opens with a great shot of Charles walking to the fair from the opening scenes of Powers of 10 number 1. The artwork from RB Silva has really grown on me over the past 6 issues. While I still think he has a couple issues with his visuals during the X0 timeframe, on the whole, he's done a fantastic job throughout, especially with the visuals in the X2 and X3 timeframes that are unique to the Powers of 10 series. Like I mentioned last week, Marte Gracia was unable to complete the color art on the final issues of House and Powers. David Curiel once again fills in admirably and does a great job replicating Gracia's previous work on the books. RB Silva, Marte Gracia, and David Curiel do great work executing Jonathan Hickman's vision for Powers of 10 number 6. I rate the art 4 out of 5. One grievance I do have with this comic is the page count. This is a $6 comic with an expanded page count, but 6 of the initial pages in the story are the same art with the same dialogue from Powers of 10 number 1, while 4 of the pages on the end of Powers of 10 number 6 are the same art from House of X number 6 with a new monologue. Readers definitely don't get the amount of new content they likely believe they are paying for. After the first 6 pages of retread graphics and info, Hickman dives right in and starts rewarding readers who stuck with the entire 12-issue story. If you remember, the final scenes from Powers of 10 number 1 showed the librarian overlooking a dome where 2 figures appeared before the end of the story. The scene resembled Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden to me. This week, the librarian enters the dome, which we now know is a wildlife preserve, and this zoo is home to the last remaining mutants of Earth. Many X-Men readers, including myself, were speculating the librarian and elder are Charles and Moira in a future evolved state, likely after alterations courtesy of Apocalypse. That is not the case. They are simply post-human entities seeking ascension into the Phalanx. We learn the two figures in the garden are Logan and Moira. The librarian and Logan have a terrific opening exchange. Logan states, "You understand it though, right? They just want to be free, not locked up here in this zoo." The librarian's response is very chilling. How could anyone want something they don't know exists? Mutants have been enslaved in cages for so long, they don't actually know what freedom is. Except for Logan and Moira, of course. When Moira arrives, she's very youthful, and we learn she's still alive and well because she's been receiving blood transfusions from Logan for nearly 1,000 years. The librarian explains, once post-humans are assimilated into the Phalanx, it won't matter that she can reincarnate and fix the wrongs of the past. The Phalanx are part of the Dominion, which transcends space and time. Once they learn the power of Moira's gift, that knowledge is forever, and the Dominion will not tolerate anything with Moira's power existing. The librarian then asks Moira how she would prevent this end state from ever happening. He mocks that mutants never saw humanity surrendering to machines was actually the next evolutionary step for humans, not Homo superior. But in the end, it's not machines that end mutant life. Sentinels and Nimrods just bought humans time, while genetic engineering outpaced the natural evolution of mutants. Mutants may be the natural successor to man, but manufactured human evolution made further leaps in machines possible, and every leap in machine technology makes another manufactured human evolution possible, until post-humanity is achieved. Moira, beside herself, says, "I never saw it." The librarian drops the bombshell on her. "And I guess you never will. After all, if you aren't capable of recognizing the real enemy you face, how could you ever defeat them? Maybe this is just how it ends for you." Hickman's dialogue has been phenomenal the past 3 or 4 issues of House and Powers. Moira and Logan maintained her life for a millennium to learn they never even saw the real threat coming, and this end state is likely inevitable. With this newfound information, it's time for Logan to send Moira back to her next life. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the end of Moira X's 6th life. The X3 Ascension story is the missing link in Moira's lifetimes that is followed by her murder spree of the Trask family lineage in her 7th life, joining Magneto's House of M in her 8th life, and teaming up with Apocalypse in her 9th life. Clearly, this knowledge changes her to the core. She really isn't the same person after these events. She basically knows it's inevitable genetic engineering and machine technology will end mutant life on Earth. This is a phenomenal reveal. I think most people had parts of the X3 Ascension story figured out, but I didn't hear any theories that were close to on the money with this one. And I must say, this is the second beautiful shot of Logan murdering Moira RB Silva has rendered for this series. The lighting effects from David Curiel are also breathtaking. The man certainly knows how to make a moment look and feel special. We then return to Charles and Moira on the bench, and Professor X doesn't receive this newfound knowledge quite as well as previously believed. He's shocked to learn the fate of mutants, that his dream doesn't become a reality, that in all likelihood, mutants and humans can't coexist. If the mutants follow Charles in his current path, they will lose. Charles now knows it's survival of the fittest. It also starts to become clear Moira isn't quite what we thought she was either. She tells Charles, "It's a bit much, I agree, that it cuts at everything you believe, even more so." This comic is a bit light on reference material, but there is a lot to chew on in Moira's journal entries. I'm not going to get too into the weeds here, but it's very clear she's manipulating Charles. We also learn, despite scanning her mind, he can't recall all the events in her past lives. In her 5th entry about Charles, she writes, "It's painful how hopeful and idealistic he remains. It's shameful how much he wants to love these people. He will learn." In entry 14, she writes, "While we have become romantic, it is becoming clear to me that I am breaking Charles Xavier. And if I do break him, how will he become the man I need him to be in the coming days? My concern, my paramount fear, is that I fracture his psyche and eventually unleash something unexpected in the world." It's clear in the entries she does break Charles' mind. We also learn they likely created Proteus for the purpose of completing the resurrection machine. Moira imprinted the idea of strongholds in Magneto's mind, and she advised against Charles and Magneto's recruitment of Sinster. She's also shocked to learn Sinster created a chimera decades earlier than projected, and it's Sinster himself. There's also an assortment of hints that line up directly with the events we know occur during Moira's 10th lifetime, including faking her death. So Charles and Eric are the only ones who know she's still alive. We then jump to Professor X and Magneto joining her in the No Place to talk about the upcoming first meeting of the Council of Krakoa. Most of the council appointments went as expected, and Charles placed the problem mutants, Mr. Sinister, Exodus, and Mystique, in winter together. This seems like a foolish appointment. I wouldn't put Sinister close to anyone they couldn't trust fully. Charles informs Moira Mystique would only accept her seat with certain guarantees, and things get a bit hairy. Mystique needs them to bring Destiny back to the mutant fold. Moira is staunch that under no circumstances are they to allow any precogs on Krakoa. They cannot tolerate mutants that see the future. Charles keeps replying, "We know," as she lays out all the reasons. The bottom line is, they can't have anyone knowing the truth, that mutants always lose. There may be a bit more to this than meets the eye. We know Charles scanned Moira's mind, but can't recall everything he's learned. This feels like she's trying to hide something from Charles and the rest of Krakoa. We know she's teamed up with Apocalypse in the past. Maybe they're using Charles and the X-Men for another purpose. I'm not sure, but it's clear Moira is scared to death of being anywhere near Destiny or any other mutant that can see the future. The comic ends with the Endor celebration scene on Krakoa, but with a different monologue. Charles and Eric say things will be different this time, and it's all due to Moira. Charles continues, "There's no denying what you have done, Moira. You shaped us into this. You made us into this. We are the perfect tools for an imperfect age. You should celebrate what you have done, for you have done well. But now it's time for you to step aside and let us do the good work for which we are created." Magneto talks about being willing to die for Krakoa. Charles says, "Keep talking like that, and you're sure to elicit a response." Eric boldly replies, "I am not ashamed of what I am. Let them try to stop us this time." Just a great monologue to end the series. Jonathan Hickman finally delivers the missing pieces of why Charles feels off. He's a broken mutant who realizes his dreams can never happen and he needs to take a new path to save Mutantkind. The dialogue in this comic is exceptional. I rate the characterization 5 out of 5. Hickman pays off many mysteries in this issue, including the Ascension story and Moira's 6th lifetime. I rate the plot 5 out of 5. Before I wrap this up, I want to send a friendly reminder, if you can't get enough of House of X and Powers of 10, be sure to watch tomorrow's edition of Outside the Bleed with my good friend Skip and Tosh. We'll give our final thoughts on the events of Powers of 10 number 6 and where we believe Dawn of X is heading. We leave the margins of the comic book and explore all the implications Powers of 10 number 6 has on the X-Men as well as the Marvel Comics universe. When House of X number 6 finished, it felt like the logical end of the House and Powers story arc. Well, it turns out that's just what it was. Powers of 10 number 6 ends in the exact same place, but Hickman fundamentally alters our understanding of the events in House and Powers and provides clarification for some of the odd behavior from Charles. There's still plenty of mysteries to uncover, but this is an exceptionally satisfying end of the series. RB Silva, Marte Gracia, and David Curiel do a fantastic job executing Hickman's enormous vision and scope in ink and color. I hope this creative team works together again in the very near future. I rate Powers of 10 number 6 4.5 out of 5 overall. This comic receives my highest recommendation. If you missed the boat, I can't encourage you hard enough to pick up the collected edition releasing in November. This is one of the most important mainstream comic stories of the past decade. Jonathan Hickman, Pepe Larraz, RB Silva and Marte Gracia has set the foundation for an amazing line of X-Men books in Dawn of X. Hickman has always been a writer who executes stories at scope most others won't attempt. He may have outdone himself this time. He told a story spanning 1,000 years and 10 lifetimes. He made Moira X, Cypher, Proteus, Goldballs, and many other mutants who are seen as throwaway characters integral to X-Men lore. He fixed a lot of the mess that is X-Men continuity and didn't even discard the misguided works of lesser creators in the process of doing it. Jonathan Hickman made X-Men feel important again. He made X-Men feel special again. The X-Men are in the best place they've been in over a decade, and I for one couldn't be more thankful and more excited for even more amazing X-Men stories ahead. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.